Hello everybody, this is Teacher Cheska, and today we will start with our first module in Science 9. So here, if you look at your weekly home learning plan, this will be the video for the first day, and our objective for today is to explain how the respiratory and circulatory systems work together to transport nutrients, gases, and other molecules to and from the different parts of the body. Okay, so this is our learning objective for today. So this morning we'll begin. So will you open, get your module 1, and here we shall begin first. On your learning task, you are supposed to read the following pages. So the first page that you will read would be this. What is this module all about? Please forgive the background noise of my dogs. Okay. So in your previous years, you learned about the human digestive system and how each part functions and how it breaks down the food to nourish your whole body. You also learned that the human body is composed of several organ systems which work together to keep us all alive. So you'll read this one. So today, for this video, we will give you an understanding of how your respiratory and circulatory systems work. So this is the first one, and then you also need to read this, what I need to know, and you will learn that your module is divided in several lessons. Okay, and then here specifically you will learn to identify the main parts of the human respiratory system and describe the functions of each part of the human respiratory system. Explain how the lungs work. Describe how the movement of the diaphragm helps the air go in and out of the lungs. So this is what we'll do this morning, the first 4. Okay? So you have to read this part as well, so you'll know what are the other parts of this module. For the first thing that you will have to do in your answer sheets, which is nasa yellow pad paper. So, write your name, your section, and then isulat ni siya. What I know pre-test. This is a multiple choice test. Okay? I just need you to write the letter of your answer. Okay? So, read each question and write your answers. There are 15 numbers. So, mauna siya ang unang buhaton. Mag-answer ta ani. Okay? Answer your pre-test. So, ibutang dito, what I know, pre-test, number your paper, your yellow pad paper, 1 to 15, and write your letter of choice. Okay. Palihog ko, tarong og sulat. Kung mahimo, i-capital letters na lang yun nato. Okay, usahay ra ba ang inyong mga letter A murag gyapon letter B or letter C o letter D. So, para lang maklaro ang answer, capital letters kung mahimo. After ninyo na siya na answer, natubag na siya, let us continue to our lesson. So, this is on number 3. Read the lesson 1. Parts of the human respiratory system. Okay. At any time, pwede nimo i-pause ang video kung gusto ka mubalik sa. Pero kung humana kag-answer, pwede kang padayon. Okay. So, kanina ta. So, inyo ni siyang basahon. What I need to know and what's new. Okay? So, basahon nato ni. So, dinhi, gipangutana, mabuhi ba ka kung wala kay tubig o pagkaon sa isa ka semana. Pero, kung ikaw, dili ka hinga for a few minutes, yes, mamatay ka. Pero pwede ra ka mabuhi. You can survive several days without water and survive for a month without food. But you cannot survive for more than 5 minutes without oxygen. So this is very important. Breathing is very important. And what helps us to breathe is the human respiratory system. So the human respiratory system consists of organs in our body that help us to breathe. Respiration is linked to breathing. So the respiratory system does two very important things. It brings oxygen into our bodies and gets rid of carbon dioxide. So what is the human respiratory system? So when you breathe in and out, so mag-inhale, exhale ka, you are now breathing. So here, your air that you breathe, ang hangin na atong masimutan, moves to the different parts of the respiratory system. These are the nose, nasal passageways or nasal cavity, the pharynx, which is also known as the throat, the larynx or the voice box or kung sa lalaki, Adam's apple, and the trachea or the windpipe. Then, it goes to two tubes called bronchi, and these tubes carry the air into each lung. So inside the lungs, the bronchi is divided into tiny tubes called bronchioles. At the end of the bronchioles are hundreds of tiny air balloons called air sacs or alveoli. A large dome-shaped muscle called the diaphragm is also found under the lungs. So, after learning about that, so these are the different parts of the respiratory system. Now we will try to answer an activity. This is activity number 1, name me. So again, on your answer sheet sa yellow pad, isulat dito activity number 1, name me. So unsa atong buhaton ani na activity? We will name the parts of the human respiratory system. How to do this? Directions: observe the drawing of the respiratory system in figure 1. Label the parts with the given words inside the box. Write your answer on the blank. Okay, so muna siya ang human respiratory system. Piliun na to ang answer dani sa box. Okay? So on your yellow pad, you have to write down the numbers 1 to 8. Okay? No need to copy the drawing unless you want to copy the drawing. If you don't want to copy the drawing, okay ra pod. Ang importante ang answer. So, kabalo ba ka kung unsa ni? That's number 1. Number 2, unsa man ni siya? Okay. So, you just choose your answers here. Alright? You can pause this video while you're answering that. Okay. It says in your weekly home learning plan, after answering that, you have to perform activity number 2. Okay. This is activity number 2 titled, What a Bunch of Grapes. What is the objective? We have to name the parts of the lungs using the bunch of grapes model of the respiratory system. Kung wala tayo grapes, kay mahal man ang grapes, other fruits and vegetables are okay to use. For example, 1 bunch of lanzones, nyog-nyogan, lato, cauliflower, malunggay leaves, or even 3 branches. So, tingali, ang pinaka-duol yun, or pwede na to makuha kay ang malunggay leaves. So, what will we do? So, kani siya, mura lugar ni siya kanang murag model lang ba? Kopyahon lang nato unsay sulod sa atong lungs. So, hold up your malunggay leaves and let the malunggay leaves represent the respiratory or breathing system. Now, tan-awon ninyo og maayo, what are the parts? So, here, syempre, ang drawing niya is the grapes. Alright. Locate the parts of the respiratory system in the grapes, in the figure. So, this is an example. One by one, gently take out some of the grapes to expose more of the branching stems. Observe its structure. Tan-awa og tarong. Trace the pathway of oxygen using the material you have. Asa kaha mosulod ang hangin? Dinhi? 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 Unsa man siya na part? So, pwede sa di mo tanawon balik katong atong sa previous here, what is it? Isulti man niya dinhi kung unsa ang part sa respiratory system. Then, i-imagine nato, no? Kung kita mohingat ta, magsimot ta og hangin, asa man siya moagi ug asa siya padulong. Okay, let's continue. Now here, this one, in answering this activity number 2, now what a bunch of grapes, you have to copy this. So, i-copy nato. Muna siya, guide question number 1. Then, you put this table. So, ang pangutana, what does each part of the plastic or real bunch of grapes model represent in relation to the breathing system? Complete the table below. So, ato lang siyang i-identify. So, what are, kung ang main stem, asa dinhi ang main stem? Ang pinakadako na stem sa inyong malunggay leaves or dinhi lugar sa picture of grapes. Unsay tawag sa iya? Okay. Tan-awon ug maayo ang inyong drawing. Obvious na kaayo ang answer. Alright. Please take note that the trachea is a hollow tube so as to allow the air to pass through. Okay. Ano lang lugar ni siya? Representation. Dili gyud ing ani ang atong lungs. Are we clear? This is just a representation. So you can read the notes here. Okay. We're done with number 1, 2, and 3 of your learning task. And then, let's go to what I have learned and what can I do. Okay. On your yellow pad again, you write down what I have learned. And then, muni siya ang atong answeran. This is matching type. You match the column A with the column B. Write only the capital letter of the correct answer in the blank provided. So, I want you to write what I have learned sa inyong answer sheet sa yellow pad. And then, butangan ninyo column A, kopyahan ni tanan. Okay? Ayaw na ni siya kopyaha. Wala na column B. So, tan-awon ninyo inyong module. Number 1, ang lungs. Asa kaha ang lungs? So, i-write lang dayon ang letter. Okay? So, after doing this, we can now go to what I can do. Again, write down what I can do in your answer sheets. Isulat sa yellow pad. Sa ilalom, what I can do. And then, kani siya, ato lang siyang i-arrange. So here, it says, when the air enters our nose, it passes through different parts before exchange of gases occurs. Okay? So, arrange the correct sequence through which the air passes after it enters your nose or mouth on the blanks below. Paghinga nimo, ahaman mapadulong ang hangin. So, asa man ang una? So, ibutang nimo dinhi, sunod, 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 sunod. Okay. You can copy this part here. This entire part here. You can copy that. Alright? So, again, you can look through the previous pages sa inyong module so that you can remember unsa ang rota sa hangin para mapadulong siya sa lungs ang oxygen ang atong ma-inhale and then ma-exhale nato ang carbon dioxide. Okay? And after this, you continue to lesson 2. The functions of the human respiratory system. So you have to read this. Here, you will find out that in charge of supplying oxygen are the nose, the nasal passageways or nasal cavity, the pharynx, larynx, and trachea. And again, it will divide into two tubes called the bronchi, and the bronchi will carry the air into each lung. Inside the lungs, the bronchi will be divided into bronchioles. And at the end of the bronchioles are called the alveoli. Inhaled oxygen moves from the alveoli to the blood in the capillaries, and carbon dioxide moves from the blood in the capillaries to the air in the alveoli. Under the lungs is a large dome-shaped muscle called the diaphragm. But the lungs are the main organ in the respiratory system. Okay, so let's continue. Oops, alright, sorry about that. So here, kabalo na ta sa parts sa human respiratory system. So, unsa man ang parts sa human respiratory system? Natay nose, nasal passageways, pharynx, larynx, trachea, bronchi, bronchioles, alveoli, and then inside the alveoli you'll have the capillaries, wherein they will then move the air, get the oxygen, give it to the blood, and exhale. You will exhale the carbon dioxide. So the carbon dioxide moves from the blood and goes out to our nose or mouth again. Okay, for this lesson, we will now describe the function of the parts of the human respiratory system. So how do they do it? So here, it says that the respiratory system consists of different parts that allow air to reach the lungs. But before the air reaches the lungs, it must first be processed. Each part of the respiratory system performs a specific function. Okay, so now we will go to answer what's more on page 7. So we'll skip this and diri natin ta. You have to read this also. So what is it? Of course, have you experienced having colds? So this is where you have the function of your respiratory system. So these are the parts of our respiratory system, and these are the functions for each part. So the nose, unsay gabuhaton sa atong ilong, this is the entrance of the air into the body. That's true. When you inhale through your nose. Although pwede po through our mouth. The nasal cavity, it is where the air is filtered, moistened, and warmed. So, our nose, musulod ang air sa sulod sa atong So, ang nose lugar, ang entrance lang, nasal cavity na dayon ang sunod, no? Ya na dayon, inyo makita na naatay mga hair inside the nose. That's part of the nasal cavity. Okay? I-filter nila ang air para kung naay dust, dili siya makasulod sa imong lungs. Diya pa lang, sa nasal cavity, filter na siya. Okay? Magpabilin, mahimo dayon siya og yes, kulangot. See? That's dirt. That's why we have to remove it preferably kag naligo ka. Yes, you remove that. Okay? Alright. And then of course, you have the pharynx wherein musulod na atong hangin, no? Fresh air, musulod sa atong lungs. And then, actually, after that, it goes to the larynx. Okay. This connects the pharynx to the trachea and contains the vocal cord. It also prevents the passage of food into the lungs. So, the larynx is very important because, diba, when we're eating, usahay, mabitaw nang matukan ka, dayon. The larynx is the one that will stop the food from going into your lungs. Imo din na siyang iluwa, no? Kay kung musulod ang food sa imong lungs, patay. It will clog your lungs, diba? Then you cannot breathe and then eventually you'll die. So, the trachea also is the main passageway of air into the lungs. Then you have the bronchi, which carries the air to each lung, and then our lungs, of course. This is the function of our lungs is they help oxygen that we breathe enter the red blood cells and get rid of the carbon dioxide when we breathe out. So it's very important. Ang lungs, no? Very important. Dili na gyud ni siya. I-convert na niya. So katong oxygen dapat mabilin sa atong red blood cells para mabuhi ta. And then ang carbon dioxide, i-exhale na to when we breathe out. Of course, the bronchioles, these are the tiny tubes that connect the bronchi to the alveoli. And the alveoli, kung plural, alveoli. Kung singular, alveolus. Okay? So, the exchange of oxygen and carbon dioxide, this is where it happens, inside the alveoli. And the diaphragm controls the breathing process. Okay, let's go to what's more. So, as the air enters from the nose to the nasal cavity, then to the pharynx, air moves to the larynx. However, food has to be kept out of the larynx. Muna akong giingon ganina. And this function is carried out by the epiglottis. The epiglottis is a flap of tissue located at the upper end of the larynx. When you swallow, the epiglottis partly closes the larynx, where food and water move down the esophagus. And then, from the esophagus, syempre, if you remember your digestive system, padulong din siya sa atong stomach. Okay? So, that's the esophagus. Now, let us check how much have you learned from our lesson. Complete each statement using the terms from the list below. Write your answer on the space provided. Okay. This is 5 items. So, on your answer sheet again, just write what's more. And then, you can answer directly. I prefer na mag-answer ta directly. So, you just choose your answers from the box. Okay. But, if you want to copy and then answer this, it's also okay with me. Practice your penmanship. Alright, so, to review, let us watch a video on how the respiratory system works. Okay.
What's up, dudes, and what's up, ladies? Brian here again, and in this video, we are going to look at the respiratory system. We're going to look at the functions of the respiratory system, its components, how the system works, and some things you can do to maintain a healthy respiratory system. So, let's roll. The respiratory system's main functions include transporting air into and out of the lungs, protecting the body against harmful particles that are inhaled, and its most important function, the exchange of oxygen and carbon dioxide. So it's basically about breathing. Now let's take a look at a diagram and we'll go through the respiratory system's main components. Starting here with the nose and nasal cavity, the mouth or oral cavity. The pharynx is here, and it is what we consider the throat. The pharynx is considered part of the digestive system as well as the respiratory system, and it connects the respiratory openings to the larynx and esophagus. The esophagus is not part of the respiratory system, and I'll get to why I put it in the diagram in a minute. Next we have the larynx, which is also called the voice box because the vocal cords are located here. The trachea, also called the windpipe, is here, and it connects to the bronchi, which merge into smaller tubes called bronchioles. And the bronchioles connect to tiny air sacs called alveoli. And then down here is the diaphragm. Now let's go through a very basic look at what happens during the breathing process. So air is breathed in through the nose or mouth. When it enters through the nose, it gets spread out by these shelf-like things here called conchi. The conchi help humidify the air and trap some inhaled particles. They also warm the air. The air next passes through the pharynx and enters the trachea. One note here. This little flap-like structure is called the epiglottis, and it has an important function. During breathing, it is pointed upward, allowing airflow into the trachea. However, during swallowing, it folds down to prevent food from going into the trachea, directing the food into the esophagus. If food does enter the trachea, the gag reflex is induced to protect the respiratory system. The epiglottis here, this little thing, shows you how amazing the human body is. Anyways, back to airflow. So air continues down the trachea and enters the bronchi. From there it enters into smaller bronchioles and finally into the alveoli, which are surrounded by a network of capillaries. And this, folks, is where the magic happens. Oxygen enters the alveolar sac and the gas exchange occurs. Capillaries give up their waste carbon dioxide and pick up oxygen. Carbon dioxide is then exhaled through the air passage the oxygen was inhaled through, and the oxygen picked up by the blood returns to the heart. During this breathing process, the diaphragm is busy as well, contracting as we breathe in, which allow the lungs to expand, and relaxing as we exhale. Some minor respiratory disorders include the common cold, influenza, acute bronchitis, which is inflammation of the bronchi, and pneumonia, which is inflammation of the bronchioles and alveoli. Some of the more damaging disorders include chronic bronchitis, where the bronchi become inflamed and narrowed, mainly caused by tobacco smoke, emphysema, where the alveoli become overstretched, and lung cancer, which in almost 9 out of 10 cases is caused by tobacco smoke. What can you do to maintain or improve respiratory system health? Maintain a healthy weight. Excess weight compresses respiratory muscles and puts more stress on your lungs. Drink plenty of water. Dehydration can cause the mucus lining your airways to thicken and become sticky, making you more susceptible to illness. Consume foods rich in vitamins, minerals, and antioxidants, such as fruits, veggies, and nuts, which can help reduce inflammation and fight oxidative damage. Limit exposure to common allergens, such as dust mites, pollen, and animal dander. Maintain good hygiene. Many respiratory viruses are transmitted because of bad hygiene and poor hand washing. Don't overconsume alcohol. It dehydrates the body and weakens the immune system. Get more active. Regular aerobic activity can help your respiratory system. Add indoor plants. Plants have been shown to help improve air quality. Bottom line 10. As you can see, the respiratory system has a major impact on overall health. As you may already know, breathing is kind of important. So eat a healthy diet, maintain an active lifestyle, and keep up good hygiene. Remember, folks, be happy and be healthy. All right. If you have any questions,